Each year when the dry season arrives, the ultimate predators grow fiercer to claim territory. Who will endure? Comment where you're from before exploring. Ultimate predators, most brutal fights for territory. From the moment the first light touches this savage kingdom, the king of the Savanna awakens, patrolling boundaries that remain invisible to the eye. Every animal survive upon this land understands they are absolute. An ancient wisdom passed down through millions of years. A territory left unclaimed is a territory waiting to be embraced by another. The roar of a mature male lion stands as one of the most powerful resonances across the African plains, a profound declaration to the entire ecosystem. I am present, I am watching, and these borders are firm. How many years will the lead lion maintain his pride and his domain? Please share your thoughts in the comments. Before we witness the final combat of the lion pride. And now, let us encounter the first ones to question that supreme authority, the eternal enemies of the lion. The hyena stands as one of the most intricately social predators in Africa, second only to the lion. Far from being the passive scavengers many imagine, these are organized hunters, guided by a strict hierarchy and a level of coordination that few species can equal. The renowned skill they have perfected through millions of years of evolution alongside the lion is not direct confrontation, but rather kleptoparasitism. Gently claiming what others have prepared. When a pride of lionesses secures a meal, the announcement has already been delivered, not through a call, but through scent. Through the graceful movement of vultures in the sky, and through the signals that the entire ecosystem is constantly interpreting. And the hyena clan, long accustomed to interpreting those signs, begins to converge. their signature calls echoing continuously, not to intimidate, but to maintain their formation, keeping a steady pressure from every direction. The lionesses resist. But a lioness cannot preserve the bounty against the entire clan. Once they have collectively decided to make it their own. But everything transforms with the arrival of the male lion. A mature male lion with a thick mane is an entirely different presence compared to the lionesses, not merely in terms of stature, but in the complete message that his presence conveys. The hyenas understand this in the most profound way. Through an evolutionary memory etched into their DNA after 1 million years of coexistence. The evening meal returns to its rightful keepers. The pride continues to enjoy the rewards of the hunt. The male coalition does not exist primarily to hunt. They exist to stand between the pride and all that waits within the shadows. Anything that might challenge the stability of the pride, whether it be the hyena clan or the nomads from the north, whom their pride will inevitably have to encounter very soon in the engagements to follow. And now, upon the plains where the lion reigns supreme, the cheetah exists in an entirely different manner, by speed. And by a very clear understanding of its own limitations. The cheetah is the most gifted hunter on the savanna, in a purely technical sense. The explosive acceleration, the ability to pivot, the precision when delivering the final embrace, all are unsurpassed. Yet, after the pursuit, the cheetah's body requires time to restore itself. And this is the moment of greatest vulnerability. During that interval, the scent of the bounty has spread far and wide, and the entire ecosystem is watching. This is not a defeat. Even though from the brief perspective of a lost meal, it may appear so. This is the strategy of a species that has learned that the only engagement worth undertaking is the one that can be won. The cheetah exists within the lion's domain by never staying long enough to become a concern. It takes its fill, leaves early, and begins anew elsewhere. It is the logic of survival for one who is not strong enough to contend, but is swift enough to never truly lose. And this also means, on these plains, the cheetah's meal is never solely the cheetah's. It is always half belonging to someone else. And the cheetah has accepted this as a non-negotiable term in its contract of existence. Meanwhile, the leopard resolves the challenge of securing its bounty in the most ingenious way possible. The branches serve as the leopard's private sanctuary, safe from the hyena that cannot climb, and safe from the lion whose weight prevents efficient ascent. This is a solution validated by millions of years, and it functions in the vast majority of situations. But not all. This time, the king decides the offering must be his, and the leopard is reluctant to yield. The situation transforms into a test of endurance. In this impasse, what determines the outcome is neither strength nor swiftness, but something far simpler. Who possesses more time to wait, and who feels the deeper longing for sustenance. Finally, the leopard simply vanishes into the shadows of the trees to begin anew. No true confrontation occurs. The lion secures the meal without exertion. The leopard loses the meal without losing its existence. In this struggle for survival, that remains an acceptable conclusion. The leopard understands this. It will ascend another tree on another night, in a place where the wind whispers from a different direction. In contrast to the big cats, the wild dog pursues its bounty through endurance and near-perfect coordination. And upon the open terrain of the savanna, it is remarkably effective. Yet, efficiency only remains when the landscape is without a master. When the lion steps into the midst of the pursuit, the bounty belongs to the one who did not participate in the hunt. The rules of a protected domain grant no exceptions. For those who are merely passing through or occupied with their own quest, it requires every presence to acknowledge who holds the authority here. No loss of life occurs, but on that day, the wild dogs remain with a longing for sustenance. And that, too, is a cost that the lion's territory imposes on all others nearby, until a more formidable presence is encountered. In the savage kingdom, the lioness works to keep her heirs well away from danger. This may be one of the few genuine fears a lioness carries. A lion cub is little more than a light meal for a Nile crocodile. And when they strike, the cub's fate is sealed. But there are days when crossing the river is unavoidable. The lioness must ensure her future offspring are born robust and healthy, guaranteeing they become the ultimate predators. Across Africa, hundreds of locations serve as contested ground between lion and crocodile. but measured against the lion's vast territorial range, there's no breathing room for crocodiles. To extend the reach of their territorial claims, welcome to the Okavango Delta. This is the flood season, and the largest of the river predators are at the height of their power. This meal is a far cry from tranquil. The male lion knows what waits in the floodwaters. To successfully challenge a male lion, a Nile crocodile must measure between 3 and 4 meters in length. The delta is its domain. This is the moment the Nile crocodile has been waiting for. The male hesitates. The opposing jaw is extraordinary in its scale. But faced with the prospect of losing his kill, he must act. The young male wants to drag the carcass away, but the crocodile intends to keep what lies within its territory. The male lion possesses the strength to hesitate and withdraw. But what occurs when the one encountering the crocodile has no path for retreat? But before that, there are other courageous challenges to consider. The pack moves as a single unit. Today's mission extends beyond quenching thirst. They must cross this river. A pack of 10 is a vocal group. They have reached the stretch of river they must cross. The 2 most confident members enter first, but the channel runs deep here. The remainder must locate the shallowest crossing to avoid being overwhelmed. Successful crossing. But they are being followed. The Nile crocodile has a beneficial routine, thermoregulation. After a long night submerged in cold water, the body temperature of this ectotherm drops substantially. Solar radiation is here to warm the hunting apparatus. The predator is at complete rest. Yet the African wild dog pack perceives it as an unwelcome presence. Consequently, they stand their ground to nudge the crocodile back toward where it truly belongs. The Nile crocodile is clearly irritated, but under sustained harassment from the boisterous pack, it returns to the water. The giant will watch that presumptuous pack very closely. Meanwhile, the leopard hunts alone. In 95% of scenarios, this is a strategic advantage. The leopard is the only predator on the savanna capable of hauling a kill, sometimes exceeding its own body weight. 6 meters up an acacia tree. It operates at the boundary between day and night, occupying a temporal space no other predator controls. A 38% hunt success rate. The lowest among the large predators, the leopard compensates through patience. It has been observing this waterhole since yesterday. Young wildebeest have chosen this as their watering point. the dense vegetation scattering their scent away from predators. Or so they believe. For the wildebeest, nothing beats a spot offering both a feast and water, until the leopard strikes gold and secures its lunch. This female leopard has navigated her 7th dry season. She calls the shots across this entire territory. Still, taking a drink remains a game of chance. The Nile crocodile does not tolerate intruders in its waters. But now, the lion pride has no time for the leopard. They are facing a hidden vulnerability. The male lions of the pride can still discourage the hyena clan in the night. They can still claim the bounty from other predators. But every encounter leaves something behind. Not necessarily a visible mark, but an accumulation of 100 moments where the body must function at its absolute limit. Those elements manifest in their scent, something that the nomadic lions can interpret from a distance. And that is exactly what they seek, to determine the precise moment to initiate the great transition. Nomadic lions are encouraged to depart from their birth pride at a young age. Not due to a lack of strength, precisely because of the opposite. They have grown sufficiently for the lead male lion to perceive them as potential counterparts. Studies refer to the subsequent years of these wandering souls as the nomadic phase, the period when the continuity of life is most delicate in a male lion's journey. Wandering the fringes without a domain, without the support of a pride, without a status that guarantees sustenance or tranquility. Those who prevail, and especially those who endure long enough to find companions, are the ones strong and adaptable enough to succeed the male lions of the great prides. It begins with an assessment of the opponent's condition. The frequency of marking speaks to the state of vigilance. The essence within the scent reveals the true physical state of the one who left it. Gaps in the patrol schedule tell of the pressure weighing upon the leading males. And the Savanna understands this as well. Species that exist by constantly interpreting the status of the predators around them begin to adjust their behaviors subtly, maintaining a greater distance from certain territories, reallocating their time for grazing. Smaller beings within the ecosystem shift away from the areas experiencing unresolved tension. And the pride itself feels it. A fierce confrontation is inevitable. The engagement between mature male lions does not persist for long. Physiques of that magnitude cannot sustain full exertion for an extended duration. What determines the outcome is not endurance, but rather who secures the advantage in the opening moments. And that advantage belongs to the side that coordinates with greater harmony. The outcome of the struggle is clear. The roar of the victor is unlike the standard patrol call. It is longer, repeating in sequence, as if needing to speak until the entire savanna has heard it enough times to remember. A new frequency is overwriting the old, and this domain is relearning the name of its guardian. One era has reached its conclusion, and another era begins through a profound transition. In the days following the takeover, the new male lions begin to inspect each small group within the pride. The females respond immediately. A mother's instinct contains no exceptions for cases where the counterpart is larger or more formidable. What follows is the chapter that nature writes in its most dispassionate language. The smallest cubs are without opportunity. The reasoning behind this stems from a biological logic validated by millions of years of evolution. While a female is nurturing her young, her body cannot simultaneously prepare for the next generation. For the new male lion, with a tenure of unknown duration, not a single day can be squandered. Their legacy must be carried forward, not at some point in the distant future, but right now. Is this a path of existence without morality? Please share your perspective with us. For now, the days following the confrontation are quiet in a way that differs from all other days. Behavioral researchers describe this phase as a process of restructuring the social fabric. When every position, every relationship, and every priority within the pride is being rewritten from the beginning, after the force that held them all together has vanished. This territory begins to recognize the new voice of its master in the way a territory always does. Through the accumulation of 1,000 small marks replacing 1,000 others, until the scent of the past fades beneath the rain. And the essence of the new becomes the only legible truth. The roar at dawn carries a new frequency. The savanna updates its map. And then, without any clear signal, the feminine instinct is performing what it has always performed, leading toward the future, even if that future is formed from the embers of what was recently lost. Within a few weeks, the females will begin their cycles once more. The cycle that has run for millions of years on these plains begins anew, through the silent continuation of all that life knows how to do. But within the acacia thickets to the east of the domain, there remains a cub whose mother journeyed far into the night of the confrontation. Now, in the days that follow, he is beginning to venture out from the shadows of the trees. When he has grown sufficiently, and if the new male lions have established themselves firmly enough to no longer perceive him as a concern, he may be permitted to return to the pride, or perhaps he may not. But this cub is existing, and upon these plains, having moved through that night, is a sufficient answer to the questions of today. The questions of tomorrow will be addressed when tomorrow arrives. The Mara River continues to flow, as it flowed before this pride existed. As it will flow after this pride becomes a memory gradually erased by the rain upon the stones where no one visits to leave a mark. Today, those standing upon the banks are new silhouettes, a new scent, a new roar. Next year, during the dry season, everything will begin again. And somewhere on the periphery, perhaps beginning as recently as last night, other lions are listening. They are interpreting the scents. They are counting the moments. Authority is not held indefinitely, but it does not vanish. It simply passes to the next, the one who has stood long enough in the shadows and carefully interpreted the signs that the current guardian no longer notices. And who will stand here during the next dry season? At what cost? Please share your thoughts in the comments. And remember to like, subscribe to the channel, and enable notifications. Before we continue with even more profound struggles for existence, coming up next. At the Mara River, there is one entity that defies straightforward categorization. It is not the crocodile's prey. It is, in fact, an herbivore. It is something else entirely. An adult hippopotamus weighs 1,500 kilograms. Crocodiles do not attack adult hippopotamuses. There is a precise reason for this. The hippopotamus jaw contains 36 centimeter canine teeth, longer than an adult human forearm. A single bite from a hippopotamus can penetrate crocodile hide. Even if the crocodile survives the encounter, wounds inflicted by a hippopotamus typically produce severe infection. And nothing about an adult hippopotamus constitutes accessible prey. Hide 5 centimeters thick, a body of dense musculature. And nutritional return that does not correspond to the risk incurred. But the young are a different calculation. The mother hippo delivers her young beneath the surface. Tragically, its birth coincides with the migration season, when the river is at maximum density with vulnerable animals and with crocodiles, and it is more efficient to select live prey. The mother's task is absolute. If the crocodile submerges to ambush, the mother must do the same. The the Nile crocodile has determined it will take advantage of available resources. And for the first 2 weeks following the calf's birth, the mother permits no crocodile within 9 meters. There is an observed characteristic of the crocodile-hippopotamus relationship that is frequently overlooked. Crocodiles and hippopotamuses occasionally occupy the same stretch of bank. This is not peace. This is the acknowledgement of a practical reality. The hippopotamus knows the crocodile will not attack it. The crocodile knows the hippopotamus will not attack it unless it violates the safety perimeter of the calf. And both understand that the river is wide enough to accommodate both. Hippopotamuses and crocodiles, a deceptive truce. Who do you imagine will be the first to deviate from this arrangement should the food sources become scarce? There is one species at the Masai Mara for which the Mara River is not a border. It is merely an obstacle. An adult African elephant weighs 6,000 kilograms. This is the combined mass of 7 Nile crocodile alpha males. And unlike the hippopotamus, the African elephant moves through the entire ecosystem, across the savanna, through the forest, through the river. The Mara River for the elephant is one step in a longer journey. The Nile crocodile in the same stretch of river registers the entire event through its pressure receptors before the elephant places a single foot in the water. And the crocodile's response is not to attack. The crocodile's response is to withdraw. Not from fear, though fear may be the accurate label. But the calf is a different ballgame. A small calf weighs 120 kilograms. This size is something a crocodile might find manageable, and this is why the herd maintains a specific formation when crossing the river. The largest females enter first. They position themselves as a barrier on the downstream side. Calves remain in the center, others form the flanks. This is tactical. But the crocodile's attention does not remain on the herd for long. Research on 7 large buffalo herds in the Masai Mara reveals 73% of hydration visits occur at the crack of dawn or 1 hour before the sun sets. Temperatures are much milder. Visibility is clear enough to see, yet the light isn't intense enough to overheat their bodies. And more significantly, these are the periods when crocodiles are most in motion, moving to the bank during the day, returning to the water in the late afternoon, which means their positions are, at these moments, predictable. When position is predictable, risk can be mitigated. The first buffalo to reach the water's edge stands motionless for 30 seconds. No response. Like every other species at this river, the buffalo needs water. to the point of accepting risks that carry a direct cost to survival. A typical African buffalo herd contains between 200 and over 1,000 individuals. And when the herd moves to the river to drink, that movement is not an individual decision. It is the decision of the herd. The Nile crocodile's maneuver toward the African buffalo herd did not lead to success. It is time to shift gears and find a new direction. The foundational principle of every ambush predator: do not engage at the point of greatest strength. A young buffalo becomes the subject of its attention. It is drawn away from the bank. The predator does not surface. Its objective is to drown the prey. The young buffalo works to break free of the underwater restraint, but this only accelerates the depletion of its reserves. If drawn into deep water, a body mass exceeding 100 kilograms becomes a liability. And the outcome resolves as physics demands. Rivers do not kill at random. Over millions of years, these locations have become biological filters. The weaker individuals, old, diseased, injured, carry a statistically higher probability of being targeted here. The stronger individuals pass through. This is not cruelty. This is selection pressure. The buffalo that survive the Mara River carry the genes of those who crossed before them. The female calves born from mothers who crossed enter the world with a history of survival already written into them. Night falls. The buffalo herd has crossed. 200, 300 individuals now spread across the savanna on the far side. Among them, one is no longer present. The Mara River has retained its portion. And the Alpha Nile crocodile, now visible at the river's center in the darkness, does not move. It simply exists. As it has existed for 65 million years, while everything around it has continuously changed, continuously evolved, continuously sought new strategies for survival. Along the riverbank slope, a faint sound stirs from beneath the sand. A soft tapping. The remaining eggs, after 90 days, begin cracking from within. The mother crocodile is the first to pick up the sound, and it is music to her ears. And then she does something that few would associate with a Nile crocodile. She gently gathers each newly hatched individual into the cavity of her mouth. The same cavity that generates a force sufficient to crush bone and carries them to the water. The hatchlings are carried to a nursery pool their mother has readied for their development. The wild's most formidable predator takes shape from such gentle and tiny beginnings. The young princes, too, do not yet know about the river. do not yet know about the border, do not yet know the cost of crossing it. The Mara River has no memory. It does not remember the individuals who crossed. It does not remember those who did not. It does not hold 65 million years or 2 million years. But every species in this ecosystem carries within its body a record of every prior crossing. The genes of those who survived, the knowledge of those who watched long enough, the patience of those who waited long enough. The invisible border remains, along the water's edge, where the Nile crocodile's empire begins, where the lion's empire ends. Please share your reflections in the comments, and remember to select like and subscribe before we continue into the greatest journey of survival in the African savanna immediately following this. At the heart of northern Tanzania, a realm trembles on the knife edge between paradise and oblivion. Echoing across this vast stage is the ancient, primal pulse of one of nature's most extraordinary spectacles. The Maasai call it Serengeti, a name that carries the weight of centuries. Endless plains stretch to the very edge of the world, a sea of golden grass with no visible horizon. Driven north by the shifting northeast monsoon, millions of hooves begin the greatest overland migration on Earth. What flows before us is a river of flesh and bone, propelled forward by the relentless pressure of survival. In February, the first rains weave a lush green carpet across the southern plains. The Serengeti transforms almost overnight into nature's most extraordinary maternity ward. Within just 3 weeks, as many as 8,000 wildebeest calves are born every single day. This is predator satiation, a calculated evolutionary strategy designed to overwhelm the appetite of every predator. The sheer rate of births exceeds what every predator combined can possibly consume. When the hunters are sated, survival for the herd becomes a statistical certainty. Beneath the scorching equatorial sun, extreme survival pressure can trigger an instinct to abandon the young. A single fracture in the maternal bond, and the newborn immediately enters the crosshairs of the waiting hyena. On the Serengeti, life invariably begins in gasping urgency. Death is never far behind, a relentless shadow that makes survival here the most brutal of symphonies. Lightning splits the sub-Saharan sky, drawing African wild dogs from their daytime shelter into the darkness. Their supreme weapon is not explosive speed, but the relentless art of endurance hunting. Torrential rain turns the ground to treacherous mud, stripping away the wildebeest's sprinting advantage. In the chaotic darkness, the wild dogs deploy separation tactics, methodically squeezing their quarry into a closing vice of patience. One exhausted individual finally collapses into the fury of the storm. Dawn breaks to reveal a Serengeti reborn, vegetation surging with renewed vigor after the night's downpour. High on the ancient granite coppice, baboons display their dominance over all they survey. For the great wildebeest army, time is the cruelest enemy. There is no rest, no pause, no sanctuary along the way. The promised lands of Kenya still lie hundreds of parched kilometers ahead. The extraordinary journey must resume the moment the first rays of sun begin to scorch the plains once more. Amid the thundering chaos of the migrating column, a zebra herd slows as a new life prepares to enter the world. The absolute protection of the herd is the only shield standing between this fragile newborn foal and oblivion. From the acacia thickets, lion and hyena watch like ghost shadows, patiently waiting for nature's smallest error. The amniotic scent surrounding the newborn foal becomes an inadvertent invitation, broadcast to the sharpest predatory noses on the savanna. The mother licks vigorously to stimulate the foal's peripheral circulation and eliminate the dangerous scent signature. 15 minutes. That is the fatal deadline within which the foal must stand on its own 4 legs before death arrives. Every stumble on trembling legs is a test of the miraculous resilience encoded in those newborn muscles. Only the mother's fierce defensive instinct erects the steel wall separating her foal from the hyena's waiting jaws. The true survival race erupts the moment mother and foal must immediately dissolve into the heaving, migrating mass. They exploit the chaos of the multitude to erase their scent trail, escaping the closing ring of predators. Crossing the arid rim of the Ngorongoro crater, the Great Migration finally reaches its promised land of Kenya. Lush, verdant grasslands stretch without end, transforming this region into a true paradise for every species that arrives. Vigilance remains the first law of survival, for every paradise has its faithful guardian. The lion, lord of the plains, has no need to join the exhausting pilgrimage. This architect of patience simply waits in stillness as the feast comes willingly to its door. A solitary lion would never charge blindly into the churning center of the herd. Concealed at the chaos's edge, the predator deploys acute stereoscopic vision to conduct a precise target selection. Silence is shattered by a lethal strike the instant the chosen target enters the killing range. A single misstep by the fleeing prey is paid for in blood. Encountering predators is an unavoidable destiny woven into every mile of this extraordinary journey. The wildebeest temporarily feast on the lush highland grasses, rebuilding the energy reserves they will desperately need. The bounty ends only when the last drops of moisture evaporate beneath the relentless equatorial sun. Then the ancient rhythm stirs again, compelling the vast army to begin its long return to Tanzania. This pilgrimage of dust and thirst drives them back into the waiting embrace of old and familiar enemies. In the darkness of the den, the next generation of hyenas makes its entrance into the world. Unlike most carnivores, hyena cubs are born neither blind nor helpless. Wide eyes and a jaw already armed with erupted teeth announce an instinct for conflict that appears from the very first breath. Even among blood relatives, a brutal contest erupts immediately to establish the hierarchy that will govern their lives. In the darkness, silent struggles establish the invisible order that will govern the entire clan. Cubs, born to the dominant female, inherit a world of abundant food and absolute protection. Those of lower rank must risk their very lives to compete for a single drop of milk or a scrap of space. This ruthless inequality frequently ends in the death of the weakest. Often, only a single cub survives the turbulence of the earliest weeks. This cruelty is, in truth, an extraordinarily efficient mechanism of natural selection. Despite its richness, the mother's limited milk supply forces the litter into a brutal internal purge. Only the most resilient warriors prove worthy of the resources needed to survive. For the first several weeks, the hyena cubs remain hidden deep underground, preserved against a hostile world. Darkness becomes the forge in which their muscles harden and their primal survival instincts are sharpened. By the second or third month, the fateful moment to step into the light has arrived. The world beyond the den reveals its harshness swiftly, demanding far more than mere courage alone. Welcoming the newcomers is the unblinking scrutiny of the entire powerful clan. The cubs' seemingly playful antics swiftly transform into tactical hunting exercises with real-world consequences. Under the watchful guidance of battle-hardened elders, every movement the young make is observed with intense concentration. Short sprinting drills and simulated ambush exercises serve as real-world tests of their capacity to adapt. This transitional period determines which individuals have the mettle to rise and which the Savanna will discard. Defying every convention of Africa's brutal savanna is the enigmatic spotted hyena. In this kingdom, supreme power belongs to the females, born strategists of remarkable decisiveness. Spotted hyena society operates according to the most rigid and complex hierarchy in the carnivore world. Power is not won through daily combat. It is maintained through inheritance and absolute deference. At the apex of this social structure reigns the matriarch, the one who steers the clan and sets its rhythm. This supreme female has absolute authority over feeding order, the direction of every hunt, and the allocation of all resources. The offspring of dominant females inherit their privilege from the very moment of birth. They receive abundant food, rigorous protection, and a social standing that shapes their character for life. Male spotted hyenas have no fixed place within the clan's social order. Even the most powerful males must accept the lowest rank in the social hierarchy. Upon reaching maturity, they are compelled to leave their birth clan and seek their fortune in unfamiliar territories. There, extreme caution and complete submission become their only tools while waiting for the slimmest of opportunities. The anatomy of the spotted hyena is a masterpiece refined across thousands of years of brutal adaptation. With an asymmetric build featuring notably longer forelimbs, they carry a distinctive sloping silhouette charged with latent power. This unique body design optimizes acceleration and stability across every conceivable terrain. Spotted hyenas are supreme endurance athletes, the antithesis of the lion's explosive ambush style. They sustain a relentless pace, pursuing their quarry with unwavering persistence until it collapses in total exhaustion. Their formidable jaws generate a crushing bite force exceeding 6,894,757 newtons per square meter. This extraordinary muscular power allows them to pulverize the densest bones with alarming ease. The sensory system of the spotted hyena has been tuned to a degree of absolute precision, from the scent of carrion kilometers distant to the faintest rustle in the thorn bush. Nothing escapes their awareness. Night vision that penetrates absolute darkness transforms these animals into haunting, spectral hunters. Spotted hyenas shatter every preconception of the mere opportunist through hunting strategies of extraordinary patience and precision. There is no room for chance. Every strike is the result of rigorous tactical conditioning. Probing comes first, never a direct charge the moment a target is identified. By provoking a response, a small group of hyenas can decode the fatal weakness of the least vigilant individual. Once a vulnerability is exposed, the entire clan deploys simultaneously in a lethal encirclement, locking the prey with no escape. Silent body language, a glance, a flick of the tail, functions as a supremely efficient command network. Each individual takes a specialized position, from point runner to flank blocker, eliminating every possible escape route. The brutality reaches a clinical precision as they dismantle their prey with astonishing efficiency. Even as the quarry still draws breath, the killing process continues with cold, methodical finality. Occupying a role few acknowledge, spotted hyenas are the invisible custodians that maintain the savanna's ecological order. Their capacity to consume what every other predator refuses makes them an irreplaceable link in the ecosystem's chain. The digestive system of the spotted hyena is an evolutionary marvel, equipped with gastric acid of extreme concentration. It can dissolve the hardest tissues, hooves included, neutralizing even organic compounds teeming with lethal bacteria. Where lions would sicken and die, spotted hyenas consume the feast with serene immunity. By cleansing the landscape of pathogen-laden carcasses, they prevent epidemic outbreaks and safeguard the health of the entire ecosystem. The chilling laughter that echoes through the African night is habitually mistaken by humans for arrogant mockery. In truth, this extraordinary sound is a sophisticated and precise communication tool of the spotted hyena. Each laugh can convey a spectrum of meaning, from anxiety and submission to excitement or genuine fear. Its distinctive pitch and rhythm reveal, with scientific accuracy, the identity, age, and social rank of the individual producing it. The reputation as a mere scavenger is among the most deeply entrenched misconceptions in all of natural history. Field studies confirm that more than 60% of the spotted hyena's diet comes from active, self-conducted hunts. Those who call them cowards should witness firsthand how they face lions directly, with absolute defiance. The moment the lioness brings down her prey, she faces the immediate threat of losing everything she has earned. The hyena army materializes brazenly in broad daylight, abandoning any pretense of nocturnal concealment. This is a force of extraordinary organization, bound together by iron discipline. The matriarch never orders a charge blindly or without calculation. Every move is planned with the astonishing precision of a master military strategist. A single cold glance from her is enough to instantly reconfigure the entire battle formation. The advance is sealed, the retreat locked off by patient, encircling predators. The sophisticated tactical trap closes slowly, but inevitably around its isolated target. Even as the lion wields absolute muscular supremacy, the hyena overwhelms with numerical advantage and savage guerrilla tactics. The crushing pressure of 6,894,757 newtons per square meter from the hyena's jaws is sufficient to break any will to resist. On the unforgiving Savanna, true sovereignty belongs not to the largest individual, but to the most disciplined and cohesive collective. Situated at the foot of Mount Kilimanjaro along Kenya's southern frontier, Amboseli occupies a prehistoric lakebed. Nearly 400 square kilometers of bone-dry white salt flats where ancient waters once pooled. Amboseli exists as two landscapes in tension. To one side, the Nkongo-Narok wetlands sustain their emerald richness through snowmelt-fed aquifers flowing down from the mountain. To the other, cracked open plains, where survival demands extraordinary endurance. At the heart of this unforgiving arena, each new life enters the world already carrying within it the blueprint of an inevitable departure. The Serengeti imposes relentless pressure on its residents. For females with dependent young, that pressure is compounded further. In the weeks around birth, the lioness withdraws from the pride entirely. The birth itself must occur in absolute silence. During the first 30 days, the cubs remain entirely still and concealed. A faint vocalization or an exposed scent trail could draw competing predators directly to their location. Once strong enough to leave the den, the cubs are introduced to the communal nursery, the creche. Here, survival is shared among multiple females. through a tightly maintained system of collective care. Among the creche, young males encounter their earliest tests of strength and resolve. Within this protected environment, they build physical conditioning and competitive instincts, building toward a future where the margin between success and failure tolerates no hesitation. The creche, however, is not a feeding arrangement. Its primary function is collective defense, resistance against the threat posed by roaming male lions from outside the pride. Yet the Serengeti permits no guarantees. Despite coordinated protection, nearly half of all cubs fail to survive their first year. For those who do, the emergence of a developing mane signals another sharp transition. Expulsion of young males is initiated between 18 and 36 months of age. Their continued presence within the pride creates structural risk, rivalry between generations, and the threat of genetic compromise. Fewer than 1 in 8 dispersing males will eventually secure and hold a pride of their own. Those who succeed will convert the adversity of their nomadic years into the foundation of lasting dominance. Their legacy is written in the lineage of those who inherit the land after them. Yet Amboseli represents only a single chapter. To the south, the arid expanse of the Kalahari is fractured by one of Africa's most extraordinary hydrological formations, the Okavango Delta in Botswana. By measure, the Okavango is an inland river delta spanning more than 15,000 square kilometers. Every year, billions of cubic meters of water pour in from Angola's highlands. As the rest of Africa contracts under the dry season, the Okavango swells outward, transforming bare ground into navigable waterways and isolated green sanctuaries. To the Baye and Hambukushu peoples, the Okavango is a living record, its channels traced by generations of Mokoro canoes through walls of papyrus. Yet for wildlife, this floodplain sanctuary demands relentless adaptability from every resident. Here, one predator has refined its social architecture into a precise instrument of collective endurance. In much of the animal world, females anchor the pack. But among African wild dogs, males outnumber females significantly. The male-to-female ratio typically falls between 3:1 and 8:1. Each litter born to the alpha female is genetically skewed toward males. Within the labyrinthine channels of the Okavango, the pack requires a deep reserve of hunters and caregivers to survive across generations. When females reach 2 or 3 years of age, they are expected to disperse and form new packs elsewhere. Males, by contrast, commit fully to their natal group. They remain for years, some for their entire lives, reinforcing the structure that once protected them. Within the wild dog's hierarchy, the alpha male earns his rank through demonstrated leadership and accumulated field experience. A leader may carry permanent injury, a missing limb, or a shortened tail from a wire snare. Yet the entire pack continues to act on his direction. In the pack, individual survival has no meaning if the collective cannot sustain forward movement. When the group is divided between launching a hunt or holding position, they reach consensus through repeated sneezing. Once the count crosses a critical threshold, collective will override the alpha pair's preference. Should a pack member sustain a debilitating wound, the remaining dogs shift into an unrelenting support role, attending to the injured with consistent care. Breeding rights are formally reserved for the alpha pair. Yet to preserve loyalty, beta males, the steadfast brothers, are occasionally permitted to father offspring. This calculated concession keeps the pack's most capable hunters in service. Still, not every male remains. Around 37 months of age, groups of age-matched brothers frequently choose to break from the pack and venture outward. Their dispersal journeys can stretch to 240 kilometers across open and unfamiliar ground. Each crossing into foreign territory triples the risk of lethal encounter. Mortality during the first year of dispersal reaches 75%. The journey is pursued with a single purpose: to find a group of unattached females that has similarly departed its home pack. Together, they may begin constructing the foundation of a new permanent group. When the alpha female delivers her litter inside the den, the males assume their role as primary defenders. They rotate guard duties, confronting encroaching hyenas and competing predators to protect the next generation. Pups are consistently fed before the adults, their access to food a standing priority within the pack. In Sabi Sands, the landscape offers no sweeping vistas or open clearings. The name Sabi traces its origin to the Tsonga language, Plave, meaning danger. The lore of this land is bound to generations of hunters who learn to read the concealed threats behind every tree. Sabi Sands today hosts the unrestricted movement of Africa's most secretive large predators. Its open boundary with the Greater Kruger allows continuous passage across the landscape. Every dense stand of vegetation conceals a watcher. Every sturdy branch may serve as a platform for something already claimed. Over this landscape of shadow and concealment, a solitary and powerfully built presence holds dominion. The leopard. Adult males can reach 96 kilograms, approaching double the weight of a mature female. A male's territory may encompass up to 1,000 square kilometers of complex terrain. It is deliberately structured to overlap the ranges of several resident females. Within it, he operates as the dominant male, maximizing every reproductive opportunity. But within Sabi Sands, holding power is only the first requirement. The ability to defend what has been secured is equally critical in a landscape occupied by persistent competitors who readily take what others have killed. Among them, hyenas and lions, the leopard has turned tree canopies 12 meters above the ground into a private cache beyond the reach of most competitors. Exceptionally developed jaw muscles and powerful shoulder architecture allow the male to haul prey exceeding his own body weight straight up into the canopy. This vertical storage is essential for retaining hard-won kills against the persistent scavengers that patrol below. After a gestation of 106 days, the female leopard delivers between 1 and 3 cubs. To reduce the risk of discovery by lions, hyenas, and in particular, unfamiliar males of her own species, the mother must shift her cubs to a new location at regular intervals. The daily relocation may cover more than 1.6 kilometers through dense cover in search of more defensible ground. A single miscalculation, an ill-timed call or a revealed trail can eliminate an entire cohort. At 8 weeks, the innate behaviors of a high-order predator become apparent. The diet shifts steadily from milk toward meat. With caloric demands accelerating, meat consumption in early weeks accounts for approximately 25% of an adult female's intake. Between 3 and 8 months of age, that proportion climbs to 50%. By 10 months, the mother begins actively instructing the young male in stalking and ambush technique. During this period, the male cub receives a distinctive advantage. Unlike his sisters, who are typically pushed toward independence earlier to establish adjacent ranges, the male is permitted to remain with his mother until approximately 24 months of age. This extended residency is not accidental. Roughly 27% of all prey the mother secures during this period goes directly toward sustaining her growing son. He requires additional time and nutrition to reach his maximum physical capacity. As the second year draws to a close, it is the young male's own sire who ultimately drives him from the established territory. The leopard now enters the most demanding phase of his life, a period of extended nomadic movement. This interval represents the point of greatest vulnerability in a young male leopard's development. Only 41% of nomadic males successfully establish a permanent range. The remaining 59% disappear into the broader landscape without leaving a genetic trace. A predictable outcome within the mechanics of natural selection. As the dry season strips the last remaining moisture from the ground, the savanna has no tolerance for the solitary. Prey becomes scarce. Survival is measured by the durability of strategic alliances. Coalition. Within the pride structure, lionesses carry the primary burden of securing food, but this does not reduce the male's role to passive consumption. During their nomadic years, males must independently secure every meal, receiving no assistance from others. To the Masai, the male lion embodies the highest measure of strength within their Unoto warrior ceremony. His full mane, however, works against concealment in open terrain. To compensate, he becomes a specialist in close cover approach, pressing into thickets and waiting for a precise window. The probability of a lone male retaining sole control of a pride is approximately 17%, with tenure typically lasting fewer than 12 months. This timeline is too short to raise a full cohort of surviving offspring. Forming a coalition, therefore, is not a preference. It is the necessary path to lasting reproduction. Coalitions divide broadly into two categories based on relatedness. Kin-based coalitions typically bring together brothers or cousins who grew up within the same pride. Larger alliances, those numbering 4 to 9 males, are almost exclusively composed of individuals sharing a common bloodline. Within large coalitions, reproductive access is not distributed evenly. It concentrates around a small number of high-ranking individuals. Yet subordinate males accept this arrangement through the logic of inclusive fitness. By supporting close relatives, they indirectly advance the survival of their own shared genetic material. Non-kin coalitions, by contrast, tend to be smaller, typically 2 to 3 unrelated males. Among these pairings, breeding opportunities are divided more equitably. cooperation is built on mutual benefit rather than genetic obligation. The physical mass of coalition males, in turn, opens access to prey beyond the reach of any individual. A full-grown Cape buffalo, an adult giraffe, or a stray juvenile elephant. None can be reliably taken without combined effort. The ultimate goal of any coalition remains the acquisition of a breeding territory, control over a resident pride of lionesses. When that control transfers to new males, one of nature's starkest transitions follows: infanticide. Incoming males will systematically eliminate any existing cubs under 9 months old that belong to the previous holder. This accelerates the return of lionesses to reproductive cycling within days. On occasion, under conditions of extreme resource depletion, mothers may themselves withdraw care from vulnerable young. Conserving their energy to invest in the next generation under more favorable conditions. Coalition size directly predicts tenure length. A pair of 2 males averages roughly 18 months of uninterrupted control. A coalition of 3 achieves a pride takeover success rate above 95%, with tenure extending to approximately 41 months. A coalition of 6, such as the documented Mapogo group, can sustain dominance for 50 to more than 70 months. Over that span, they successfully raise and protect multiple successive cohorts of young. While the grassland's apex predators cycle through their contests of power, a different kind of coalition is forming to the east of the Serengeti. These animals do not depend on raw physical force to establish their position. They carry something more fundamental and precisely calibrated. In Swahili, Namiri means big cat. For 2 decades, from 1994 to 2014, this section of the ecosystem was closed to visitors entirely, functioning as a dedicated recovery zone for the cheetah population. This open corridor functions as the premier high-speed environment in the natural world. Flat, unobstructed ground that allows the cheetah to reach its maximum velocity without negotiating terrain. Yet that same openness offers no cover from view. Only 2 outcomes exist in this landscape: to be the one being pursued, or to be the one initiating the pursuit. The cheetah's advantage is not built on isolated speed alone. It is sustained by the enduring bond between brothers. Females reach independence around 2 years of age and subsequently live alone. Males, most often littermates, choose to remain together permanently, forming a coalition that persists for life. A male without brothers, or one who has lost his siblings, will actively seek to align with other unrelated males who are similarly without a group. Coalitions occasionally grow to 5 members, as demonstrated by the well-documented Tano Bora group in the Masai Mara. A coalition of 2 to 4 males operates with a notably balanced internal structure. This collective dynamic pushes hunting success from roughly 25% for a lone individual to approximately 60%. The coalition can pursue not only small gazelles, but also adult wildebeest and zebra. With more consistent access to food, the group becomes better positioned to resist kleptoparasitism from hyenas and lions. Within the coalition, individuals maintain an unusually close physical proximity. When separated, they use calls that carry across up to 2 kilometers to locate and reconvene with their partners. Among coalition males, reproductive access to females is often shared. This creates conditions for ambiguous paternity. In the Serengeti, as many as 43% of cheetah litters involve more than one father. This arrangement provides a degree of protection for the young, as males are less likely to harm offspring that may be their own. In coalitions composed of unrelated males, however, a definite internal hierarchy still takes shape. When that order is challenged, serious intra-coalition conflict may follow. Located in northern Tanzania, the Ngorongoro Conservation Area marks the site of a catastrophic volcanic collapse that occurred more than 2 million years ago. The resulting crater floor spans approximately 260 square kilometers and supports one of the highest densities of large wildlife found anywhere on Earth. More than 25,000 large animals concentrated within a contained geological basin. A male hyena born to a high-ranking mother within the clan inherits an elevated social position from birth. Yet, as with numerous other gregarious species, dispersal is imposed to reduce inbreeding risk. At approximately 3.5 years of age, around 85% of males are effectively pushed from their natal clan to join neighboring groups. Only about 15% remain. Those who stay accept reduced access to younger females in exchange for seniority over any future immigrants. Existence at the base of the queue means extended periods of scarcity and persistent psychological pressure. Those at the lowest standing must wait until all others have finished feeding before they may approach. The Masai, who have long inhabited this region, named it Elenkorlonkorlo, a phonetic echo of the cowbell sounds that once filled the basin. In their tradition, Ngorongoro carries connotations of a fertile and protected place. But for spotted hyenas, its enclosed boundaries define something closer to a rigid social structure than a refuge. A male hyena born to a high-ranking mother within the clan inherits an elevated social position from birth. Yet, as with numerous other gregarious species, dispersal is imposed to reduce inbreeding risk. At approximately 3.5 years of age, around 85% of males are effectively pushed from their natal clan to join neighboring groups. Only about 15% remain. Those who stay accept reduced access to younger females in exchange for seniority over any future immigrants. For immigrant male hyenas, integration is governed by a rigid convention known as the queuing system. Upon joining a new clan, arriving males are subordinate to every female, every juvenile, and every male who arrived before them. Advancement follows strict chronological sequence. A male moves up only when the individual directly above him exits, through death or departure. Existence at the base of the queue means extended periods of scarcity and persistent psychological pressure. Those at the lowest standing must wait until all others have finished feeding before they may approach. Their powerful jaws and highly specialized digestive systems allow them to extract nutrients from bone and cartilage that other predators leave behind. But this persistence comes at a measurable cost: chronically elevated levels of glucocorticoid stress hormones. Low-ranking males remain socially isolated, repeatedly subjected to assertive behavior from those above them in the queue. Immigrant males generally avoid direct confrontation when navigating their position within the group. Conflict over rank is uncommon. Instead, greeting rituals, structured, physical exchanges serve as the primary tool for testing relationships and reinforcing bonds. These high-stakes interactions establish the cooperative foundation required when the group faces serious threats. Aggressive behavior does occur, typically initiated by established males, to limit the rate of new arrivals or to control feeding access. Dominant, long-tenured males routinely reinforce their alliances with each other and with high-ranking females. The objective is to maintain the stability of the queue and deter lower-ranking individuals from advancing prematurely. The reproductive strategy available to male hyenas reduces ultimately to what researchers term endurance rivalry. Given the female's unusual anatomy, any form of overt pressure is counterproductive. The male must instead pursue a long-term investment in deference, patience, and favor building across multiple seasons. On average, an immigrant male requires approximately 2.4 years in low-status positions before achieving his first successful mating. Less persistent individuals commonly depart after 4 years without having reproduced. The most persistent males employ a method of close, consistent attendance, positioning themselves near high-ranking females over time. They deter lower-ranking competitors and intercept unwanted advances, waiting across months or years for a receptive moment. Etosha National Park in northern Namibia covers more than 22,000 square kilometers, anchored at its center by the Etosha Pan, an immense salt flat formed from a lake that evaporated thousands of years ago, its scale large enough to be tracked from orbit. According to Haikum oral tradition, the pan was formed from the tears of a mother who lost her entire village to displacement. Geologically, this depression was once fed by the Kunene River as part of a much larger lake system, until tectonic activity redirected the river's course, leaving behind a 120-kilometer expanse of pale white sediment. Survival in Etosha centers on proximity to the waterholes. These are the gathering points where species with entirely different ecological roles are drawn into shared space. In Etosha, predation pressure combined with limited water access has produced zebra herds of notable social precision. The path of a young male begins inside the structured protection of a breeding herd, watched over by a dominant stallion and a network of mares. The timing of his dispersal depends largely on his species. Plains zebra colts typically disperse between 12 and 25 months of age, often timed with the birth of a younger sibling. Mountain zebra males depart somewhat later, around 22 to 24 months. In some cases, the dominant stallion will attempt to delay the departure of a promising son through active intervention. Among Gravy's zebras, young males may remain in proximity to their mother until age 3. Yet, regardless of timing, young males departing the maternal herd lack the experience to hold territory independently. They gravitate toward one another, forming bachelor groups as their primary means of navigating an environment where threat is constant. Each day within the Etosha landscape involves structured sparring bouts among bachelor males. These engagements simulate the full intensity of real confrontation. These exchanges operate under an implicit rule, the 50-50 principle. To ensure the interaction remains cooperative rather than destructive, each participant must be given a roughly equal chance to gain the upper hand. This is how young males develop the mechanics of combat without damaging the companions they will depend on later. In this exposed and demanding landscape, a bachelor zebra's alertness is never reduced. Gradually, as the male reaches 4 or 5 years of age, the drive to control his own reproductive future intensifies. He may begin covertly separating young females during their first estrus from an existing herd, or pursue a direct takeover, confronting and unseating the resident stallion to assume control of the group. Among Gravy's zebras, the strategy shifts toward territorial control. Males secure specific patches of land, approximately 6 square kilometers, in areas near reliable water, holding these positions and waiting for receptive females to pass through. If there is a place where survival demands more cognitive output than raw physical force, it is the corridor stretching through East Africa, from the Ethiopian highlands down through the basins of Kenya and Tanzania. This landscape was shaped by rifting that began millions of years ago. Here, the most decisive adaptations are no longer located in bone or muscle. They reside in the architecture of the brain. Across the traditions of local peoples and within the imagery of ancient Egyptian mythology, the baboon occupies a position of symbolic intelligence and occasionally strategic cunning. In East Africa, the environment does not merely offer food. It presents a continually shifting social landscape. The wet season brings a flush of resources, but also triggers a parallel escalation in social competition. In a habitat where threats can materialize without warning from the canopy above, survival depends entirely on the reliability of social bonds or exposure to their sudden collapse. Within the troop, a young male baboon inherits the foundation of his social network through his mother's established relationships. He learns the dynamics of alliance building while still sheltered within the family structure. As testosterone elevates, his behavioral trajectory diverges from that of his sisters. He begins distancing himself from maternal contact earlier, engaging in extended bouts of play with peers that increasingly mimic the physical and social demands ahead. Among savanna-dwelling species within the COKY grouping, including chacma baboons, olive baboons, and yellow baboons, males are required to disperse from their natal troop upon reaching sexual maturity. In multi-level societies, such as those of Guinea baboons or Hamadryas baboons, males tend to remain. They build a denser, more intergenerational social structure in which strong kinship bonds substantially reduce the frequency of severe conflict. Male social dynamics within the baboon world vary considerably depending on the species. Among chacma baboons, the troop operates under a strict dominance regime. Males demonstrate their physical condition directly to establish and reinforce rank. Among olive baboons and yellow baboons, troops function more as shifting social markets. Subordinate males build short-term alliances to mount coordinated challenges against the current top-ranking individual. When the alpha's position weakens, access to females falls to whoever has positioned himself most effectively. Guinea baboon troops represent an outlier, a notably cooperative social structure. Relationships among males are built on longevity and reciprocity rather than lineage. Yet, regardless of which social system is in place, holding the top position carries a measurable physiological cost. Alpha males exhibit chronically elevated glucocorticoid levels. The constant need to maintain rank through confrontation and vigilance accelerates epigenetic aging faster than in any subordinate. These individuals typically enjoy shorter total lifespans and show earlier physical deterioration, the biological price of a brief tenure at the apex. To sustain alliances and diffuse tension, male baboons engage in elaborate greeting rituals that involve a mutual display of physical vulnerability. This behavior aligns with the bond testing hypothesis. The act of making oneself temporarily vulnerable to another male functions as a credible signal of trust. Among Guinea baboons, these greeting exchanges occur frequently and without visible hesitation. Full physical engagement is recorded in 93.4% of interactions. Olive baboons and yellow baboons engage in the same ritual but with considerably more caution and ambiguity. Among the more assertive Chacma baboons, such exchanges occur at a rate of only 0.088 per hour, and up to 65% are abandoned partway through. The risk of triggering a serious physical altercation is simply too high. Another dry season has run its course. In its final weeks, the grasses of the Katisunga plains have bleached to ash gray, brittle underfoot and highly combustible. Dust carrying traces of salt and organic decay hangs in the still air. This is the moment when the question of lineage continuity will be settled. Situated in remote western Tanzania, Katavi covers 4,471 square kilometers and is among the continent's least visited ecosystems. Local belief holds that Katavi draws its name from Katabi, a hunter regarded as a founding spirit of the land. According to tradition, his presence is said to persist within the ancient tamarind trees. Katabi and his wife are believed to remain as unseen observers, witnessing each generation's passage through the landscape. Katavi's terrain is shaped by the Katuma River and the remnants of two former lake basins, Katavi and Rukwa. During the rains, this system floods extensively, supporting dense and productive wetland habitat. By October, the height of the dry season, the Katuma River has contracted to a narrow corridor of dense silt, carrying the sulfurous weight of stagnant organic matter. Temperatures routinely push past 40 degrees Celsius, charging the air with a distorting thermal haze that tests the endurance of every resident. The water has retreated, but testosterone has not. Male impalas no longer drift through the landscape without purpose. They are positioned at the edge of a fundamental shift in the social order. Under peak ecological stress, the population transitions to a lek breeding structure. It functions as an open arena for the direct demonstration of physical capacity and the competition for female attention. To assert dominance and signal fitness, the male impala carries a retractable larynx. This structure allows the vocal tract to extend by an additional 91 millimeters, enabling the production of deep roars and resonant snorts that carry up to 2 kilometers. When females enter the territory, the assessment begins. Through the Flamen response, the resident male identifies which individuals are in estrus. But the territorial male's hold is under constant pressure from opportunistic challengers positioned at the margins. These males wait for a moment of inattention when the resident is occupied with driving off a rival to attempt a rapid, covert mating. a tactical embarrassment for the territory holder, and an effective calculation for the opportunist. Holding a lek territory is a physiologically costly commitment that gradually degrades the male's condition. The cumulative toll is severe. Territorial tenure in some populations rarely extends beyond 4 months. Constant herding of females and persistent deterrence of rival males demands uninterrupted physical output. Body fat is depleted, and overall mass declines sharply. Grooming stops entirely, leading to tick burdens running 6 times higher than those observed in females. The degradation of body condition is the accepted cost of maximizing reproductive access. When the male finally reaches total exhaustion or is displaced, he enters a transitional period of roughly 1 week. He maintains the behavioral posture of a territory holder, but no longer has grounds to defend. This transitional state precedes his reintegration into the bachelor herd, where he will rest, rebuild condition, and wait for the next breeding cycle. Threats, however, do not originate solely from within the population. In areas under persistent poaching pressure, the selective removal of horned males has distorted natural herd composition. As hornless females are disproportionately spared, mixed-sex herd sizes contract sharply, leaving oversized bachelor groups operating under heightened alertness. Their internal competition is suppressed, their behavioral rhythms altered, all in response to a threat that does not follow the rules of natural selection. The verdant savanna requires no pity. It demands only our understanding. Every battle-scarred dagger boy, every deposed sovereign wandering through the night, and every elder mentor teaching the youth the secrets of the water. They are all irreplaceable fragments of the magnificent tapestry we call life. Our true legacy is not found in the photographs captured from the seat of a safari jeep. It is the commitment that 50 years from now, the roar of kings will still vibrate the Serengeti soil, and the walls of horns will still stand firm against the dust storms of Etosha. Among these diverse brotherhoods, from the calculating dolphin pods to the unyielding buffalo veterans, which bond do you believe is the most enduring and formidable? Share your thoughts in the comments below. If you found this journey insightful, don't forget to like and share this video. Subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you never miss our next exploration into the heart of the wild.